students, I hope you enjoyed reading All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury. I find it a very interesting story and quite thought-provoking. We can't necessarily relate to living on Venus and experiencing 7 years of endless rain with only 2 hours of sunshine thrown in every 7 years, but I do think that we could relate to the behaviors of the children in the story. So at this point in the module, you have figured out what tone is. You've practiced analyzing tone in a nonfiction text. Now we're going to analyze the tone in All Summer in a Day, and we're going to do that by looking at how the author wrote the story. The first thing that we need to do is go back to those 3 tone questions that we talked about earlier. To determine tone, ask yourself, why did the author write this? Who is the intended audience? And what does the writer want the reader to learn, understand, or think about? The first question that we need to answer is, why did the author write this? When we talk about author's purpose, we think PI, persuade, inform, entertain. And I certainly think Ray Bradbury set out to entertain his audience with All Summer in a Day. However, I think there's a little bit more to his intention with this story. So we have Margot, who knows what it's like to experience sunshine on a daily basis because she used to live on Earth. The other kids have been born and raised on Venus. I think there's a lot of jealousy there. And so out of jealousy and envy, they lock her in a closet. Then they go outside to play in the sun. It starts to rain again, and only then, when they have to return to the classroom, do they realize their mistake and that they have to let Margot out of the closet. And so I think what Ray Bradbury wanted to do with this story, besides entertain, is teach us a lesson in bullying. And I believe that lesson or message is that envy can lead to cruelty. The second question wants us to determine the intended audience. And since this is a short story that teaches a valuable lesson on bullying, we could say that it's for everybody. But I think we need to look deeper at the writing. This is a story that's full of very challenging vocabulary and a lot of figurative language. And simply based on that, I'm really not sure it's for an elementary reader. An upper elementary student might get the general gist of it, but I just don't think that they would be able to really analyze it like it's meant to be analyzed. So with that in mind, I think that this story is intended for middle school and up. Finally, we need to think about, what did the author, Ray Bradbury, want us to understand, learn, or think about by reading All Summer in a Day? To do this, we really need to dive deep into the author's word choice. So let's analyze a few quotes from the story. It had been raining for 7 years. Thousands upon thousands of days compounded and filled from one end to the other with rain. In this quote, the author writes about thousands upon thousands of rainy days. And then in the story, he continues on and describes the rain as a concussion of storms that are crushing the forest as the forest tries to grow. So looking at Ray Bradbury's word choice, I feel his attitude towards the rain on Venus is that of misery, gloominess, and depression. She was a very frail girl who looked as if she had been lost in the rain for years, and the rain had washed out the blue from her eyes, and the red from her mouth, and the yellow from her hair. She was an old photograph dusted from an album, whitened away, and if she spoke at all, her voice would be a ghost. At this point in the story, we know that Margot has more experience with sunshine than the other kids, and that's because she used to live on Earth, and that Margot terribly misses the sunshine. And Ray Bradbury uses words to describe Margot as if her color is fading. And it's almost as if she might simply disappear because of the sadness that comes from all of the rain and the lack of sunshine on Venus. And so based on Ray Bradbury's word choice in this part of the story, I feel his attitude towards it is that of melancholy, despair, sadness, and solemn. It was the color of flaming bronze, and it was very large, and the sky around it was a blazing blue tile color, and the jungle burned with sunlight as the children, released from their spell, rushed out yelling into the springtime. This one part of the story, I feel Ray Bradbury's attitude changes from the rest. I feel like it's the one time that he feels joy, because this is the moment when the sun is coming out and the children are watching it happen right before their very eyes. And they don't remember the last time that it happened because they were only 2. So it's been, essentially 9 years that they've gone and they've never seen the sunshine. And so they're in a daze watching this bright, beautiful sun turn the sky to blue and bring to life the jungle that up until then has just been completely drenched by the rain. And then they snap out of the daze and they just go have fun in this beautiful, warm sunshine. And so the way that he writes it, I feel his attitude is certainly that of joy and happiness. But then I also think there's that hidden attitude that goes with poor Margot being locked in the closet and that feeling of sadness and despair for her. They walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder, lightning on their faces, blue and terrible. They walked over to the closet door slowly and stood by it. So the students had their fun in the sun, and now the rains have started again and they have to go back to class. And then it hits them, that terrible thing that they've done. They've left Margot in the closet the entire time, and she's missed her 2 hours of sun. And now she's going to have to wait another 7 years in order to see it. And so I think all of that starts to hit them, the weight of that. And they're looking at each other, and they're walking slowly to that closet, and they're going to let her back out. But as they are slowly working their way to that, the author is talking about the blue lightning across their face and the sound of thunder and just the noise of heavy rain, and it's almost adding to the despair of what they've done to poor Margot. And so I feel, the author had a very clear attitude here of disappointment in those students and despair for Margot. I have analyzed a few sections from the story All Summer in a Day for you. I feel overall this story has a negative tone to it based on the way that Ray Bradbury wrote it. I've described what I think his attitude is using adjectives throughout my analysis. Here is a list of those words, plus a few more. After this video, you will choose between one of these words to describe the tone of All Summer in a Day. You will need to provide evidence to support your chosen word.